Hello, my name is Rosanne Hodin, and I am the author of this book, which basically is describing our crazy life in Liskeard for over 30 years, living the good life, as the book explains, tales from the good life on a Cornish farm, living the good life as completely hopeless wannabe farmers. We arrived from London, escaping the rat race, determined that we could live a life of self-sufficiency. And why we thought we could do that, I have no idea, because we knew absolutely nothing about farming or farm life. Michael was a Cornishman and knew a bit about horses. I'd lived in a different place every 2 years with my naval family. We were completely idiotic, and it was the people of Liskeard, our neighbours, who really endured and helped us out over many years. So we had 2 daughters, Morwenna and Georgie, and they were very much part of our team of workers. There were 4 of us very, very actively involved in this daft project. And we had a complete menagerie of animals. We had a house cow being milked every day for squillions of gallons of milk that we had no idea what to do with and had to process. We had, at one point, up to, I think, 16 goats. And we had beloved geese and ducks and chickens and guinea fowl and bees. And we had pigs to eat up all our spare milk. So we were quite a busy little cluster, and we seemed to spend a huge amount of time chasing off pests of, well, crows and buzzards were always on the lookout for our creatures, slugs and snails in our highly productive vegetable and fruit garden, and foxes. And we spent a lot of energy and time chasing all these creatures off. Now, I've had some beautiful reviews for the book, which is my first book. I'm a bit of a late starter, 70 this year, just kind of embarking on a literary career. And one of these reviews says it's a love letter to the English countryside, which is really sweet. I certainly did not have that as my plan when I wrote the book. The book was supposed to be explaining about self-sufficiency and living the good life and its pitfalls, because we met those pitfalls in shed loads, and we spent such a lot of time lurching from crisis to catastrophe to mismanagement and mayhem, really. So the reason, the trigger, I suppose, for writing this book was our daughter Georgie. We had left the farm and we had gone off to work in Africa as volunteer lecturers for 3 years. And Georgie, who was at university, had finished university, needed a job and had chosen to be an organic food buyer, and rang us up and said, did we do anything organic on our little farm? And I thought, my gosh, this girl needs a bit of reminding. So I set down to start writing the information that she obviously had forgotten. And this book is that product. I'm going to read you a few little snippets about to illustrate some of the crises and mishaps that we had. Here's one, a little passage called Chasing a Fox. I need to tell you, actually, by the way, there are all of these memories that are featured in the book are very, very short little pieces. So it's just like a string of beads on a necklace. Here we go, Chasing a Fox. I'm in the food barn gathering oats, and I hear Michael shouting, "A fox! A fox! A fox has taken a duck!" I poke my head out to check what I think I've heard. What? A fox? And Michael, from across the yard, shouts back, "A fox has carried off a duck right under my nose and is off across the field." "Get it!" I shout back, but he replies, No, it's far off by now." But I'm furious, mad, and I rush down to the gate and can see that the fox has paused in the next field. So I'm off. Down past the dip that was once a pond, I hurl myself over the gate into Jack's field, throw back my head, and I start to roar like a lion. Jack's herd of red cattle look up at me astonished. They really like the roaring, and as I run towards the fox, which has my duck in its jaws, I see that they've started to run too, maybe 16 of them. We are an impressive army of females. I keep roaring, and some of the cows join in with the bellowing noise, and we are galloping after that fox. We are all girls against the enemy. I feel powerful. The hooves on the ground are loud, and the fox turns to look. Seeing this fearsome sight, at his heels he makes a sound judgment and drops the duck and runs. 20 paces, 15, 10, and I get to the duck to find what I imagine will be carnage, but the creature is alive with a tiny wild heartbeat. So I pick it up and I tuck it under my arm. I'm no longer roaring, and my maddened army of cows have stopped in surprise to gaze at me and the duck, and then they turn back to eat grass. So the duck and I pick our way back through the grass and over the gate and into the yard, and her little heart is still beating fast as I put her in the duck shed. When I return that evening, she isn't there. I whistle the ducks in with their night feed and count them, and they are all present, and I can't even tell which one was the captured prisoner. Well, you see, lots of episodes I'm going to have fighting all of this crisis. And I'm mostly at home doing the farming because Michael and I decide very quickly that we can't actually afford to live a life of self-sufficiency, and he gets a job teaching at Liscard's school, teaching science. And we have first one baby, and then the second baby is a menace and screams all the time. And Michael works out how to help me. So here's another little snippet called Screaming Babies. I have a bad-tempered baby. Morwenna gets a break from the screaming at nursery, but we have to grit our teeth and cope with the afternoons. And then something wonderful happens at 3:30 when the school bell rings to mark the end of the school day. Michael simply leaves his desk, marking responsibilities, and he drives home at full speed and bursts into the house to rescue us all. He grabs screaming Georgie and dances about with a delighted Morwenna and lets me throw on my boots and run outside into the freedom of the fields. I run to the river and splash in the shallows. I stroke a goat's nuzzling head. I pick supper vegetables. I lie in the grass and stare at the clouds. I gather up the feed bowls for the animals and fill them with oats and other mix. I stand on the lawn and in a flourish make a row of 4 cartwheels, because I am free, and I can return to the house half an hour later, restored as a human being. We cook supper and play with the kids and endure Georgie's shrieking, and then after bath time, Michael sneaks back into school to tidy his desk and bring home work for tomorrow. He is an angel. I think we can survive. So, I do think those of you that will know Liscard from the old days would very much like to hear this little snippet about the A38, because I'm sure many of you will remember how the road on the A38 up into Dobbles used to be an absolute slow crawl, and Saturday was a nightmare for all traffic. Well, we had lent our cow to our friend near up on the moor, and she needed us to bring it back home, and we were in a bit of a puzzle about that, and the A38 came to our rescue. Rosetta and the A38. First thing this morning, Louise rings to say, can we take our cow back, the one she borrowed? Rosetta, our only cow, middle-aged, idle, greedy. She was borrowed a month ago to fulfil Louise and Chris's farm holiday brochure promise that guests could help with the milking. Rosetta's departure had been swift and straightforward because Chris had rumbled into the yard with a battered horse box, and Rosetta had been persuaded into it. The horse box had made a worrying departure, squealing and grunting along our muddy lane, and by the time it reached their farm 5 miles away, the rusting chassis had disintegrated, and they all came to a jolting and permanent stop in the driveway. And Rosetta had been a huge success with the visitors, and now Louise was drowning in an excess of Jersey milk, and they'd run out of oats and hay. Could we pop round and collect the cow? Well, this required a full family conference. We sit round the kitchen table with big mugs of tea and wonder how to do it. We have a small van, too small for a cow. Colin, Jack's son, so wonderful and neighbourly, is busy planting. We don't have a towing bar. Liz drops round and considers the problem. And Morwenna offers her small child's logic. Since Rosetta could walk up the hill to Colin's bull, why can't she walk home? Well, yes, why not? We get maps out and trace a back route along a hardly used lane, through the wool grading yard, over the bridge, through Budule and down. It could work, but there's one problem. We have to cross the A38 at a point on the busy dual carriageway where cars start bunching up to crawl up the hill into Dobwalls. How do you cross that with a cow? How fast can we persuade Rosetta to go? We have a plan, though. Phone calls are made, promises given, details are thrashed out, and we're all going to meet at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, a Saturday. One by one, the team assemble. Michael is the farmer to lead a cow. Me, support, troubleshooter and pusher of a pushchair. Georgie in the pushchair, plus drinks. Morwenna in a stripy jumper. We're all very brightly dressed for high visibility. Ray arrives with baby Peter in a buggy decorated with ribbons, and Liz takes command of our van, and in it lies a signal flag, 3 bamboo canes lashed together with a large red rag attached. And she drives off to wait at home for a phone call from Louise to tell her to set off and wait at Dobwalls in a lay-by. The timing of this has to be key. We drive to Chris and Louise's farm with the car holding important bits of equipment. Halter, rope, bowl of oats, red skirt doubling up as a second red flag, 2 baby buggies and Morwenna's recorder. At Tringale, there's readiness. Rosetta is very keen to have the halter in exchange for the oats and starts off the journey at a brisk pace. And so we wave a quick goodbye to Louise and follow Michael and Rosetta, who are already well on their way. We're a jolly group. After about a mile of dappled sunshine, Rosetta gets bored and stops to eat at a wayside grass, and we're all glad of a quick break. We sprawl about on the bank in idle chatter, and I wonder if Liz has set off in the van. We can't afford to linger too long, and I push the team on. My heartbeat's beginning to race at the thought of all that can go wrong, like a cow and a family stuck at the roadside watching cars roar past, or children or cows scattering in panic and getting snarled in traffic. Other worse horrors. I can hear the A38. We're getting closer. At the approach to the big road, we have to climb steps to a gap in the stone hedge where we will cross. Michael goes first, cautiously, but Rosetta's keen to follow, and we cluster on the pavement to consider the task. The choice of Saturday has been intentional. Saturday holiday traffic means a stop-start crawl up to Dobwalls, the easier for us to dodge through. But today, of course, the traffic is flowing smoothly and rather fast. No one seems to have noticed this strange group at the roadside. We strain to get sight of Liz. The idea is she will be driving slowly down from Dobwalls with the bamboo and red rag flying, with frustrated drivers behind her, forced to a snail's pace. She can then stop, and this will enable safe passage at least to the stripe in the middle of the road, at which point almost crawling drivers heading to Dobwalls will see the situation, cow, family, and let us pass. No Liz. Rosetta finds some grass. We wait nervously, and suddenly Liz is there at the top of the hill. Her approach is very slow indeed, and cars are hooting, but the double white line prevents maddened overtaking. The road is clear from the right, and I take my flag and stand in the middle of the road, and I wave it to show something is amiss. Hopeless. Car after car drives past, ignoring me. How? Why? A crazy woman waving a red flag doesn't merit a second glance. I move further into the fast lane and a few cars swerve to avoid me. Finally, I get them to stop. The River Jordan has opened. Michael has his chance and leads Rosetta over, followed by Buggy, Pushchair, Morwenna, Ray. We're over. And from there, it is an unhurried pace. I'm shaky with adrenaline when everyone else is completely relaxed. There's a stop for snacking, a chance for Rosetta to munch on hedgerow treats and some climbing in and out of pushchairs. We dawdle back through Bodule, the woolyard, the back lane. Rosetta, welcome home.